What do you think the battlefront should be battling right now in popular culture? For instance, I just think they've gone so far they look insane now. Let me play the audio of birthing people from yesterday. Listen.
I also noticed you changed a term in your budget work. You shifted from using the term mother to birthing people rather than mother. Can you help me get a good definition of birthing people?
Well, I'll check on the language there, but I think if we're talking about those who give birth, I think we're talking about, I don't know how else to explain it to you other than
I was a little taken back when I just read it and saw it, that the term mother was gone in spots and it was replaced with birthing people. And I didn't know if this was a direction that you were going, if there were shifts, if there are regulatory changes that are happening related to that, or what the purpose of that is.
I think it's probably, and again, I'd have to go back and take a look at the language that was used in the budget, but I think it simply reflects the work that's being done.
Liz, I have a picture of a little person that you birthed. God forbid we address you as a mother. How do you feel about birthing people? And is that one of the obvious fronts that show we're losing and B, we can win on this?
Yeah. So first of all, you can't help but laugh because the left is just so ridiculous in a sense. To call me a birthing person. I mean, in Britain, there are hospitals who are taking this one step further. They're telling their staff not to even refer to the term breastfeeding as breastfeeding. They're telling them to call it chest feeding. So my daughter woke up at about 4:45 a.m. the other day, and I suggested to my husband that he maybe chest feed her so that I could keep sleeping. It turns out that's not a biological possibility. But actually, I actually think the transgender ideology that we're fighting against here, because that's the purpose of this, right? They're trying to be so-called inclusive of transgender men, I guess, who are biological women who can give birth. But I actually think we're winning in this arena because we are being compassionate to individuals who suffer from gender dysphoria, sure. We're fighting for equal rights under the law, but we're also saying, wait a second. There's objective truth here. There's reality here. Biology dictates that there are only two genders. And no matter how you identify, you are still the gender, that corresponds to your DNA, to your biology, to your body parts. And I think that's not just a conservative and Democrat issue. It might be at the upper echelons of the Congress, the leaders, but the American people realize that, a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl, and you can't erase that.
It is, I said back in 2008, we're going to come to a time where you won't recognize your country and everything will be inside out and upside down. I think we're there because we are no longer talking and debating about policies, et cetera. We are talking about recognizing the truth or denying the truth. There is nothing that they haven't touched.
Right. I would even take it a step further than that. I think we're in a post-truth society right now. I don't think it's merely partisan bickering over what's true and what's false, who's being honest and dishonest. We are in a battle for the essence of reality because what the Democrats are peddling is delusion. And we as Republicans can't just play by their rules. We can't say, well, let's try to be tolerant and inclusive and make sure that we showcase our diversity so that we can get brownie points with the left and under their umbrella of political correctness. No. We cannot be playing by the left's rules anymore. We have to be bold, not bombastic, not sensationalist. That's not a good strategy. We have to be bold. We have to be unapologetic. And we have to not back down to these assaults from the radical left when we are speaking reality. If we do that, Glenn, the conservatives are going to see the tide change in the culture because up until now, aside from a very few people, we have not had thought leaders and politicians who are willing to just stand up for reality.
Right. Yeah, well, it's getting easier in some ways and harder to stand up for reality. I had a guy who's very, very well known and on the left. He emailed me this morning on critical race theory, and he said, critical race theory is something that was started at Harvard. It's a lawyer thing, and it's hardly practiced, and most people don't understand it. Why you people continue to shout that critical race theory is being forced down our elementary schools kids' throat is ridiculous. It's not being taught. And I wrote back and I said, excuse me, I know the difference between the Harvard critical race theory and what's being called critical race theory. But what I was shocked by was his almost denial of knowing that any of this is going on. Probably the biggest movement I have seen in my lifetime, from the grassroots and from parents across the country in every school district.
Right. Well, with all due respect to him, I'm surprised, I guess, that he's that high up on the left because he's ignorant about the origins of critical race theory. He might be referring to Harvard's version of critical legal studies, which is sort of the father of critical race theory. But if you take it even one step higher than that to critical theory, I mean, this was a Marxist philosophy created at the Frankfurt School by prominent Marxists, where they had literally written a manifesto saying, objective truth is not objective truth. No one can be objective. So instead, we just have competing political narratives. It's a theory, or it's not a theory, I should say. It's a tool to impose Marxism by identifying a new worker. And what I mean by that is these Marxists realized that Karl Marx's vision of a worker-led revolution wasn't going to happen. So they wanted to identify this new vanguard. They wanted to re-educate them to overthrow the Western institutions that they thought were an impediment to Marxism. And when these Marxists at the Frankfurt School came to the United States to escape the Nazis, they left behind one of their assistants. And he's the one who identified racial minorities here in the United States as being that next vanguard that could be re-educated to overthrow Western institutions. That's how this came to our country. It's been planted for a long time. It's just now blossoming.